Good afternoon and welcome to the FEMA and HBCU Partnership Resources and Opportunities for Students, Researchers, and Academics session. My name is Ashley Gordon. I lead public-private partnerships for FEMA, and I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. I'm also a proud HBCU graduate who received a master's in fine arts from Howard University. I'm pleased to be participating in today's discussion because I started my career in network news covering many stories on disasters and their impact on communities from across the nation. One of the first big stories that I got to work on fresh out of undergrad was Hurricane Katrina. It was during my time at CBS's Evening News where I got to see firsthand the devastation of a hurricane and the disproportionate impact on communities of color. I also got to see the great need for diversity in disaster response, the need for different perspectives, and I got to also get a sharper understanding of the complexities of different communities and the different communities that we serve. Without the invaluable perspectives of diverse populations working in emergency response, we often miss the mark in moments where people are at their greatest need, which is why today's discussion is so vital to the development of more emergency management curriculum and the recruitment of more talented and diverse candidates to take on careers in this space. Today, we have a great panel of speakers for you. So please let me introduce Kelly Fitzgerald, Program Manager for Higher Education at FEMA, Danielle Cortez DeVito, the Continuous Improvement Advisor for COVID-19 Regional Coordination Response Center at FEMA. And lastly, we have Tracy Silas, the Acting Director for DHS's Office of Academic Engagement. I'd like to welcome you all. Good afternoon. We are going to start out today's discussion, I believe, with a short presentation from Ms. Kelly Fitzgerald. Kelly, I'll let you take it away.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, good afternoon. As Ashley mentioned, my name is Kelly Fitzgerald, and I'm the FEMA Higher Education Program Manager. I am pleased to be here for the National HBCU Week Conference. FEMA's Higher program has been to the networking event in the past with the National HBCU Week Conference, but we've not had the opportunity to speak on a panel, and we are so grateful for the invitation. For the next 10 minutes or so, I want to just kind of give a broad level overview of the higher ed program and talk about specific ways we'd like to grow our relationship with academics, students, and researchers and practitioners at historically Black colleges and universities, and answer any questions you may have. Next slide. All right, we can go to the next one after this. I jumped ahead. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. So the higher ed program was established in 1994 with the original intent of helping colleges and universities start emergency management certificate and degree programs, as well as funding emergency management research and the development of course materials and textbooks. Since that time, the emergency management landscape has changed a lot, and the higher education program has changed with it. The program has expanded and now includes a variety of higher education engagement, including special interest groups, a monthly community call, an annual symposium, webinars, a college list that I'm going to speak on a little bit more in a little bit, a biweekly newsletter, regional and national engagements, as well as academic research. We are proud to say that in 1994, we started with just 4 programs, and today there are 329 emergency management certificate and degree programs and roughly 8,000 students graduating each year, and those numbers are growing. The higher ed program at FEMA is a small team of 2, but our reach is far. Next slide. Awesome. So again, one of the many reasons we're so grateful to be invited to the National HBCU Week Conference is for the opportunity to bring in new voices to our program. And there are a variety of ways for people to get involved. I'm going to highlight just 2 of those ways today, but I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of a longer conversation. And if you hear anything that I don't cover, please feel free to reach out. My contact information and the higher ed contact information will be at the end of the entire slide deck for today after everybody's presentations. So one of the big ways that people engage with our program is through our research initiatives. We have an annual call for research proposals that we fund in small amounts. We are looking for exceptional proposals and research questions that support our research agenda and align with FEMA priorities. The research agenda can be found on our website, which I'll talk a little bit more about as well. We're looking for people to tackle the hard questions within emergency management and to help us build that bridge between academic research and practice. It's a long and ongoing process, but we have been slowly working towards it. I could speak on the research topic alone for probably the full hour because it's where my passion lies in higher education. But since we don't have that much time, I encourage anyone interested in learning more about the research proposal process or the research agenda to reach out to the higher education email address, which again will be at the end of all of the slides, or to explore our website linked in the chat. Speaking on the higher education website, on there you'll find not only the information I just mentioned about the research projects and the research agenda, but also links to our current and past newsletters that we send out on a bi-weekly basis, and information on how to subscribe to those if you are interested in receiving them. You can also find presentations from the 2021 Annual Higher Education Symposium. I encourage people to find and look at the symposium that we just had in June. You can see the speakers' presentations as well as their slides. It's pretty interesting. And information on our special interest groups and information on our monthly community call. So I want to highlight our monthly community call for a moment. These are monthly calls that we host that are open to anyone interested in joining. We typically have two presenters, one from a FEMA program that would be of interest to the academic community, and one presenter who's usually an academic or practitioner partner. The presenters usually speak for about 15 minutes each, and then we open up the call to any questions or discussion. And I love these because the conversation always gets very lively and it's really interesting. So I encourage anybody to join. We have our next one coming up on September 17th, and it'll feature Kelly Garrett, who will be speaking on the Emergency Management Professionals Program. If you're interested in attending, I mentioned you can find that information on the website. And if you're interested in presenting, I want you to reach out to me if you have something that you're working on or that you think would be of interest to this particular audience. We are always looking for people. And this is a great way also for us to gauge interest for our symposium when it comes time to look for speakers. So if you are interested, please reach out. Again, my contact information will be at the end of all the slides today. Okay, next. All right. And I want to wrap up real quick with our college list on our website as well. It features a college list which provides information on certificate and degree emergency management and related programs. So even if it's not explicitly emergency management, that also includes, Homeland Security programs or disaster science programs or humanitarian programs, anything kind of in that realm. We currently have 743 programs on there, and 9 of them are HBCUs, and we are hoping to grow that number. So if you're part of an HBCU that is tackling any of these big topics that are related and are interested in signing up, that website is there at the bottom of this slide, but I can also drop it into the chat. So again, we are hoping to grow that partnership. And even if you're not necessarily one of these schools, but again, if you're interested in the research or the community calls, those are 2 other great ways to get involved with our program. I don't want to take up too much time because we have some amazing other speakers and I hope to get some great questions. So again, I'm very grateful to be here and for the opportunity to speak on our program. And I look forward to continuing our partnership with the HBCU community. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And actually, you just brought up something really important. Everyone, if you have questions, please make sure to put your questions in chat. We're going to try and make sure that on the back end, we're looking at those, and we'll try at the end of this session to be able to do some Q&A and get some of your questions answered. Now, with that said, I'd like to introduce Danielle Cortez DeVito, and she's going to be speaking right now.
Ashley, and it is a pleasure to be here and represent for my FEMA colleagues and also to be here at the White House HBCU initiative. So I am Danielle Cortez DeVito. I am the Continuous Improvement Advisor for FEMA Region 5. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information about my lessons learned, about my journey from intern to all the way to the command staff for the COVID-19. So Like I said, I am in FEMA Region 5. Our region covers 6 states that includes Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. There's also 34 tribes that are nestled on the border of Illinois as well as Michigan and Minnesota. Our our Regional Response Coordination Center, or commonly called the RRCC, stood up last February for the COVID-19 pandemic. Our tempo was very fast to make sure that we responded and provided resources for our states and tribes. That included providing PPE, whether that was ventilators and any type of financial help that the states may need. We provided that. In March of this year to June, all of our states, which none of the other regions had, but all of our states had mass vaccination center. And that was 6,000 vaccinations a day from March to June across the 6 states. I was deployed to the RRCC, or the Regional Response Coordination Center, as the continuous improvement advisor and the command staff. I collected data based on the senior leadership's priorities and what they wanted to make sure they understood, what lessons learned, areas of improvement, or any best practices. So that's where I am today. Let's discuss how I got here. Next slide. All right. So my journey is non-traditional. It is not traditional in any of sense. I do not have a military background. And when I started my internship, it was much later in my life. And after I started a family, I started my career in the private ambulance industry, as well as worked for the Chicago Fire Department. Had an opportunity to be on the Segway team, bike team, and then also for the response for presidential visits to Chicago, as well as the Dalai Lama. I have here unpaid internship that was at Cook County Department of Homeland Security. The reason why I have unpaid internship is because many HBCU professors have expressed to me that their students need to have a paid internship. They need to have that because they are working to pay for their tuition and also to support their family. So they may not have the opportunity or the luxury, as I did, to take that unpaid internship. Next, I went to AmeriCorps Red Cross, where I supported emergency preparedness in the region, Chicagoland. That helped me get my foot in the door for the FEMA External Affairs Reservists. And then I joined FEMA Region 5 in Chicago. I got an internship. So that was a great opportunity for me. During that time, there was Hurricane Maria, Irma, and Harvey. Our call center took 12,000 calls from disaster survivors. Also set up in Chicago a MARC, Multi-Agency Resource Center. Puerto Rican survivors came to Chicago because they had nowhere else to go. They had nothing. And I was able to speak Spanish and leverage my experience. If you see that there's a little bit of a longer road from internship to reservist, the internship with FEMA or Pathway, I did not go directly back to the position before. There was not a position available for me. So several years later, I became a reservist and then immediately jumped over to the Corps, which allows me to be deployed a little bit longer. And then last year in March of 2020, I joined the COVID-19 command staff for the response. Next slide. So some of the challenges, as well as the key factors that helped me get to where I am today. Challenges definitely was navigating USA jobs. If any of you ever have been there, you know that you have to have that toolbox. And I didn't have that toolbox to learn how to do the AmeriCorps or even the USA jobs to get a federal position. Also, multiple turndowns. Usually you'll go ahead and apply several times and you'll get several turndowns. Intermittent work after the pathways. That was something that I thought that once I finished the internship, I'd be able to go back to a cadre or even work at the region, but there was not that opportunity. So I had to wait until another job or fulfill myself. So again, unlike some HBCU students, I was an older or mature student. I had the luxury of having the support from family and maybe didn't need to work full time. Deployment requirements. As a reservist, sometimes you can be deployed 30 days. On the 31st day, you are returning home possibly, or staying there, or maybe going on to another deployment. As a corps, I am deployed. My responsibility is to be possibly deployed up to 300 days a year. Yes, I said deployed 300 days a year. Don't let that deter you. I deploy all over the United States, and I definitely have support from my family. And so I would encourage anyone to definitely become join FEMA. Key factors: networking. One thing that I have heard along this disaster is you never want to exchange business cards during a disaster or emergency. You need to have those partnerships and those relationships in place prior to something happen. So I would say networking is your first line of defense. You have to make sure that you network. It's something that we all know, but maybe we can do more of that. And I made sure that I use that networking. Having an advocate or a mentor, this was very important to me and critical. If you can find a mentor or a advocate and make sure that you're communicating with them and finding out what they did in their experience when they were in the operations, when they did logistics, when they are responding, and then also finding out how they got to where they are. I took a USA Jobs formal training. This USA Jobs training was actually for military personnel who were retiring and they were going into civilian life. I took an 8-hour class while I was on vacation, and it was a game changer for me. I had that tool in my toolbox, and now I was able to start applying and getting responses back and acceptances for positions within the USA Jobs or AmeriCorps portals. Internship at Hurricane Maria, I got valuable experience. The people who I were working with every day, these are individuals that I saw in my books, that things were being written about in my emergency management books. So some things that people don't do is leveraging their volunteer and work experience. I use this in everything that I do. Next slide. As you see here, I've got many titles, and every title here that I've had or still have, make sure that I leverage that and bring that into my work. So me being a community advocate as well as my intern, I use that experience to in each disaster, or making sure when I respond, and to bring that to our meetings when we have talking about disaster response or even preparedness. As a mother and wife, I use that. You saw in the roadmap, there was a little bit longer time for me to join to actually be rehired, but I made sure that I use my time as a wife, as a mother, and as a community advocate to say that these are the things I'm doing and leverage that. Lots of times, if you're let's say if you're in a sorority, or if you're in a running group, or if you're managing a basketball, or any type of life experience, use those life experiences, because it's going to help you. It's going to help you down the line, and actually in your everyday work. As you see here to the right, this is me here when I was hired with Chicago Fire Department several years ago, almost 20 years ago. I am almost over to the right, the only African-American woman that was hired for that year for the Chicago Fire Department. Next. All right, next steps and call to action. I am on the Region 5 Equity Planning team, and I leverage my experience as an African American and also an African American woman to bring and procure speakers to come and talk about cultural awareness and cultural competencies to our meetings that we have in the region. Also, I'm working with the higher education with FEMA and bringing culturally competent CERT training, as well as working with the HBCU consortium that is leading that initiative. Academic research. I'm going to be doing some academic research, and I have been doing that since the last year. If you look to the screen, if you look at the picture to the right, this is a photo of our recent class of FEMA AmeriCorps students. This photo doesn't look much different from the photo with the Chicago Fire Department when I was the only African American female. It also doesn't look much different from when I was the first and only African American to graduate from paramedic school almost about 23 years ago. So my passion is to diversify the emergency management workforce. And I heard last year that individuals said, well, we need to have qualified. And I began to do research and find out that part of this research is that there are several African American women in emergency management that do have PhDs or higher education. So the qualifications are there. The other thing is about finding a youth to increase that pipeline. Next steps for me, I will be presenting a poster titled Increasing African American Representation in Emergency Management and Emergency Response. That'll be at the International Emergency Management Conference next month in October. So obviously the goal is to have representation in African American, tribal, Asian, Latino, and to have that representation. So my call to action for my federal partners that are online, increase the training and availability of the USA Jobs webinar or whatever, if you're with Red Cross or whomever, you wanna make sure that this availability for your students are just not at 2 o'clock when you're working. We have to accommodate their work as well as their school schedule. So if you have an individual who is working at Costco at 11 o'clock, the training that USA Jobs puts on, that's not gonna work for them. So we want to think outside the box, have these training and seminars later on in the day, in the evening, or even in weekends, and provide that. Do more than just, I am reaching out to HBCUs. To my professors, I wanna make sure that you add time on your syllabus to work with students on their job, for their job portals as well as resume. And to students who are on the line, I want to encourage you to stay committed to your dream. If this is something that you want to do, your dream is coming. However, stay committed to it. Your path may not look like how you set out, but you definitely will get there. And I want to provide some acknowledgements today. Next slide. All right, so acknowledges. I want to acknowledge Mr. William Wooten, who is our FEMA Regional Integration Branch Chief, who has been a mentor and definitely an advocate, as well as Mr. Mike Chesney, who is our National Preparedness Director. Also wanted to acknowledge Dr. Downer and the HBCU Emergency Management Consortium. Without them, I would not be here today to present to you. My information is there. Feel free to take a screenshot. I think it will be on the next. And in closing, since this is a higher education conference, I want to share with you my excitement when I graduated in 2019 with my degree in emergency management and homeland security. Next slide. So stay committed to your dreams, and I appreciate the time today, and I will toss it back over to you, Kelly.
Actually, I'll jump in and take it. Thank you so much, Danielle, for your presentation and your lovely picture at the end of it. We are going to now toss the presentation over to Tracy. Tracy, whenever you are ready.
Yes, thank you so much, Ashley. And in true fashion here, I have to show my Hamptonian hat here because I too am a product of an HBCU and no rivalry, but you know, there's rivalry, all in friendliness. So thank you so much. Just want to say thank you to the White House for even putting on this platform. Thank you, Department of Education. Thank you to my DHS partners, and also a major thank you to Michelle McGriff, who is our White House representative on the HBCU initiatives and keeps me and the rest of the department plugged into so many great opportunities to engage with you. So thank you. I'm going to ask you to take the lens that you have on FEMA and bring it all the way out so that I can give you a 30,000 foot view of what we in the department do. I'm Tracy Silas. I'm the Acting Executive Director of the Secretary's Headquarter Office of Academic Engagement. Largely, when there are more than two components working on academic engagement, I'm the bridge, the liaison, but also department-wide implementation of how we engage with higher education. Next slide. So when I talk about that lens, what is DHS? Well, it's US DHS is one, right? There are so many complications with the term DHS and the acronym DHS. It's not the Department of Humane Society. It's not motor vehicles. It has nothing to do with humane services, human services. I mean, I've heard pretty much everything. It is the Department of Homeland Security that was established in 2003. So post 9/11, how timely that we're having this opportunity to speak today, because we are just on the cusp of the 20th anniversary of the atrocities that occurred. This is what our department depicts. Many of you know at the bottom, the legacy agencies, one of which is FEMA. We have Secret Service, TSA, CBP, and et cetera. Please become familiar with what our department does. We have so many wonderful things going. So full perspective as I go forward. Next slide. So specifically in my office, I am focused on the FEMA 10 region approach. Next slide. And that is to diversify FY20 opportunities for us to really advance and focus on the efforts that we have to drive internship opportunities, externship opportunities, and the like for all of our HBCUs and minority serving institutions. I also want to mention that when we see the map, which you inevitably will see, next slide, whoever's advancing, please. What I want you to see is that this is just a year perspective. So we select one out of each region each year. This year, it just happens to be the depiction of the individual states that we chose, which are Pennsylvania, Ohio, Oregon, and the like. So as it's coming up, you'll see that, so I don't give shout outs to individual states. But certainly the goal is to increase the number of internship opportunities that we're providing to HBCU students, okay? What's changed so drastically and dramatically, frankly, are the opportunities for us to extend remote internships. So for instance, my team is dispersed throughout the entire nation. So when Danielle spoke to timing and when we offer things, we actually have meetings running anywhere from 6 a.m. Eastern time all the way through to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for that very reason, so that we can reach our Oregon folks, our California folks, our Arizona and the like, okay? Next slide, please. So when we talk to higher education resources, holistically, my office works to provide resources to a multitude of students. So if you come and you provide internship opportunities in a specific component, those students are only versed in that component, okay? For instance, Coast Guard. So many folks forget that Department of Homeland Security encompasses U.S. Coast Guard. They are not with DOD, they're ours. They're not with DOD. But because of that, we have a wonderful opportunity for HBCUs to dive into something that we do not see very many people of color in, and that is maritime. So the opportunity to provide energy, ecosystem, our biochemists, a multitude of environmental sciences and law, my legal background, but certainly opportunity to do sciences and more, we've never seen in many of our HBCUs. So I'm asking all of you that are driving opportunities for students to think about the non-conventional ways that we engage in emergency management. It's not siloed anymore, that it's just FEMA. Now we have all aspects of critical infrastructure. Next slide, please. So when we talk about additional higher education resources, I want to give a little focused attention to TSA. Disproportionately, we have low numbers, HBCU and aviation careers, okay, very low. Aviation careers are a hot area. We have a lot of grant funding, right? Everyone wants to know, where's the money, right? We have scholarship opportunities. You are only as good as a program as those that know about it, right? So we're not getting enough applicants to many of these programs. So please Google DHS grants. Please look up science and technology at DHS. Look up my office, academic engagement. And certainly tell us what's working well and what's not working well to get all of the wonderful students into not only majors in aviation, but then using that as practical experience into the department. The advantage to coming to DHS headquarters and applying internship opportunities is that each intern is exposed to the multiple components. So if they come in as a TSA hosted intern, let's say, they would then have exposure full day with Secret Service, full day to learn about ICE immigration customs enforcement, right? A full day to talk about customs. And if they are remote, this is a virtual opportunity. As we're propelling ourselves forward into so many wonderful ways that we can social distance and mask up and all of those things, we still have low number restrictions in many of our facilities. So what interns would have been exposed to, like firearm training and et cetera for law enforcement, instead, we have virtual opportunities for us to share that kind of experience as well. I want to talk a little bit about ICE and CBP, which is a little bit different and greatly impacts a lot of our Caribbean population, but also just international wise. So when we're talking about hosting non-immigrant students and hosting visas for immigrant students and merging opportunities for both categories, we really want to look for more innovation. So in my office, I'm always looking for additional ways to provide opportunities that are not specifically geared toward a small select group, but instead a robust opportunity. So when we talk about HBCUs and the opportunities that were given to us, we need to talk about what are the primarily white institutions doing as well, right? And then where are we falling short? And that data comparison is how we get to where we need to be. So one of those is the CERT program, right? So I know that there's a lot of work given to creating CERT programs at universities, especially HBCUs that frankly have been affected by hurricane after hurricane and are currently going through Ida and the aftermath of Ida. So what are we able to provide students to give forethought, to weigh into some of the innovations and strategies that we can use to track and to provide additional resources to move those that are unable to move and are displaced? So all of those encompass my office of ideas, things that we can send to the secretary are always opportunities to expand in areas where we're falling short. Next slide, please. So additional higher education resources. Many folks are familiar with our centers of excellence. We have HBCUs represented greatly in our centers of excellence. That is one of the Secretary's offices as well that focuses on our innovation, strategy, and also the opportunity to create tools with grant funding. So that's congressional funds that are provided to the department, and specifically schools are selected for that. But what happens after that? After that cycle, okay? So after that cycle, that's what I'm looking to. Are students actually diving into internship opportunities? Are they actually going into careers that are reflective of what they innovated in that center of excellence, right? So that's what I'm looking to track going forward. Another thing is when we talk about national security, HBCUs were falling very short on clearances. So when we talk about intelligence as a hot hire field, which is very hot right now, by the way, cybersecurity largely surged that, but in multiple other areas. When we talk about getting a clearance, we have to be very candid at our HBCUs, especially those that are in states that it's legal for marijuana use, let's say, okay? Recreational marijuana use is a big issue for us. While it's legal in your state, perhaps, it is not federally capable of you passing a clearance. So I need all of you to really communicate that as administrators out there, that we want to be wise about your decision making. So we do not remove you, individual who's interested in intelligence, from the pool of candidates we're looking to bring into the department. Also, Pathways program. So Pathways program is something that we have, which is an idea that we bring in someone as an intern and we follow their path all the way through, whether it is lower level seniors from high school or college individuals, and they come through as an intern to start, maybe summers or winters, and then they continue on as a actual hire in the department. So it's creating a track for them. Well, I will say, when we talk about unconventional, so I started Hampton, right? Hampton University. Go Pirates. If you're a pirate out there, send it to me so I know you have my back, Hamptonian. But then went on to Hofstra School of Law, and then Georgetown. I've gone forward to overseas travel and Harvard schooling. And what's different there are the opportunities for us to catch people quickly and early, right? No one knew what was going on when we were in college. We didn't know the breadth of opportunities that were available to us, but it's us that are reaching back and saying, we have a world of opportunities. And in DHS, we're talking 240,000 people that work there. That is not enough reflection of HBCU graduates in that 240,000. I'll tell you that. So I want more of that. The last thing I want to talk about is the Secretary's Honors Program. So the Secretary looks for different surges in higher fields. Right now, intelligence, as I mentioned, emergency management, cybersecurity. We've had multiple surges. In fact, I just led a Girls Who Code, Black Girls Code, Girl Scouts. We have a multitude of different ways that we are really trying to highlight and bring in more HBCUs. But I need you all. So in that process, what I'm doing is a pilot. That pilot is to drive memorandums of understanding with individual universities. And that is to have interns come in and have full DHS access. So instead of coming in as a component intern, you would have the access that I mentioned at the beginning of my rendition of what's going on in my office. So I think that one thing I'd like from any and all of you is, as you're thinking about those opportunities that you thought you would have, right? HBCUs, they push the go Pirate, thank you. They push the careers in public figures. They push the career in lawyer, doctor, nurse perhaps, and then actor, right? Basketball player, right? But all those ways that are unconventional that we see now. Biochemist, I know I go to that twice, but when we talk about the amazing things that we needed in COVID-19 and the height of the pandemic and what we needed then, we fell short. Okay, we fell short of the number of people that were able to give us things in the federal government. So we contract out, right? So just talking about those things that we need programs that are really talking about environmental science. We talk about climate change. Do you have curriculums that are reflective of that? I have positions that are reflective of it. Biologists. When we talk about dietitians and we talk about vaccines, right? We talk about a multitude of things, but really it is driving the idea in college that you have a world of opportunities, explore all of them, give them a try, see where they land. So with that, come to DHS. I'm here. I have been here for 11 years and I've been in headquarters most of that time. I did establish a multitude of programs, one of which is the Forced Labor Division in the Office of Trade for Customs and Border Protection. And largely that looks to stop goods from coming in to the United States as an import that are from industries where they have forced labor, forced marriage, human trafficking, and other conditions. Large area I focused on, China, Japan, Thailand, but also our Caribbean, right? So sugarcane. So we talk about a lot of those areas too, that we're driving students from there and hopefully educating them on things that we can do in the department that you didn't think of. So partner advocacy with the opportunity, and then hopefully we will be a great resource for you. So thank you so much. I'm here and a resource. If you have questions, let me know. I am public facing, so feel free to use my email. I believe that will be later on. And I'm so happy that all of you chose to attend this session to hear a little bit more about what we have to offer. Thank you so much. All right, back to you, Ashley. HU.
Yes, I said that I am not going to participate in the HU beef because it is all love across
the
the
time.
HBC universe. Thank you so much, Tracy. We're actually now going to open up for questions. So please keep the questions coming in chat, and I'm going to start with a first question for the group. Let's see. Actually, this one will be for Kelly. It says, thanks for telling us about the FEMA Higher Education Program. Could you talk more about the annual symposium? Who would you suggest to join, and what opportunities can they expect for sharing their work and hearing about the work of others?
So glad somebody asked about that. Okay. We do have an annual symposium. It's usually the first week of June. I'll tell you a little bit about the one we just had. We hosted our 23rd annual June 8th through 10th. There were between 135 and 275 participants and 56 speakers. So we do have a lot of opportunities for people to speak at the conference. The theme for this past year was untangling unprecedented uncertainty and what emergency management leaders and educators need to know. We had 4 tracks: scholarship of teaching and learning, research methodology and integration, program and policy administration, and innovative curriculum pedagogy. So we usually try to focus this. We haven't come up with a theme for the next year. Our planning usually starts in October or November. But you can see there's usually, it's a crossover between higher education and emergency management. So we'll put out a call usually for submissions for topics a little bit later in the year. So I can't give you a ton of information on it yet because we haven't had a planning meeting to give you that information, but we will be putting that information out on our website. We'll also put it in the newsletter. We'll probably be talking about it on all of our monthly community calls for the upcoming year. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to get involved. I'm not sure if I answered all of that. Ashley, can you repeat the question to make sure that I touched on all the parts of it?
Of course. It says, let's see, can you talk more about the annual symposium? Who would you suggest to join? What opportunities can they expect for sharing their work or hearing about the work of others?
Great. Yeah. So who we're looking for, typically we are looking for people who are, usually it's a lot of people who are students in PhD programs presenting on research. We have also people who are instructing. A lot of times the sessions, as you heard before, it's talking about teaching and learning and pedagogy. So it is kind of geared towards instructors and people who are teaching emergency management and other Homeland Security and disaster science and anything in that area. So it's more geared towards instructors, students, and anybody in that area. So if you're working on any active research or any active projects that kind of touch on that, we are so interested in hearing. And you can reach out, of course, like I said before, the High Ed website and through the my personal email address as well. I hope that answers it. I hope that touches on all of it.
Thank you, Kelly. Danielle, I saw your hand was up. Did you want to ask a question?
For the individual who asked, I wanted to also piggyback on what Kelly said. The FEMA Higher Education has special interest groups. I am part of the race, economic, and social special interest group. And there's about, Kelly, was there about 7? There's several other interest groups that if you go to the website, FEMA Higher Education, and Sarah may put that in there, you will actually can join, and that's a way that you can present and you're part of that conversation too. So that could be a way that you could participate and have your information shared.
Danielle, thank you so much for putting that out there. I will link to the special interest group site in the chat. Oh, nope, someone else already did. Sarah, you are on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Danielle and Kelly. Our next question is looks like it's for Tracy, I think. You guys will tell me. It says, this past year plus has been full of challenges across the DHS family. Can you tell us more about how you have seen the pandemic change internship opportunities?
Yes, thank you. I'll take that one, Ashley. Yes, so the pandemic has changed our opportunities in so many different ways. One, there are more opportunities available, right? So when we go to a discussion of the gaps of what we needed versus what we had in the department, one major thing was we needed a little bit more robust experience and tech innovation in the department, especially in the height. And so a lot of the attention turned to higher education. What are our colleges doing? What are our specific regions doing in this space, especially those with academic research centers? So with that, we have an influx of funds that specifically went to those efforts, one of which is the targeted violence and extremism, right? So when we talk about targeted violence as well, in the middle of the pandemic, we also dealt with some civil unrest, right? And so it happened to be a convergence of a story that we can tell in a positive way to say, I know that there's this going on here, but at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities for us to engage in law enforcement surges, right? So talking about doing some things that are restructuring policies and initiatives that occurred during the pandemic as well. And so we are having a lot more applicants in law enforcement as a whole, but landing them in seats are another thing. But certainly that's been a trend as well. So more money, more focus on higher education, and then also opportunities that are continuing to unveil themselves. I will say one last thing as well is the idea of remote working was fully explosive during the pandemic, right? So all of those positions that we thought could not occur outside of the physical brick mortar building, we then saw that no, the continuity of operations continued, and it really didn't matter where anyone, specifically worked from, just that they were able to connect, right? So that led to broadband and additional communication outlets as well there. So way of thinking changed, money changed, and certainly opportunities. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for that. We're gonna try and get in two more questions before we run out of time. Let's see. All righty. Can you tell us more about grant opportunities available to beyond FEMA and across the DHS family?
Okay, I'm guessing that's Tracy again. No problem.
Sorry, yeah, I guess so.
Please. No, these are really great questions. So grant opportunities, everyone wants to know where's the money, right? Who's paying for this effort? So we have a multitude of grants that are available. We have small business grants. So when we talk about innovation, entrepreneurship, those things are needed greatly. So please look to Small Business Administration that have earmarked funds specifically for DHS. We also have our HBCU initiatives that are in the targeted violence category that I mentioned before. We also have ICE, so Immigration and Customs Enforcement has earmarked a certain amount of money for diversity and inclusion and equity as well. And when I use those DEI aspects, I'm specifically referring to race-based, faith-based, gender-based, sexual orientation-based, right? So it is not specific to any one category. And so I think that a lot of folks think they're taken out of consideration before they even apply. So look on DHS grants. If you just Google that, you'll see a lot of the money that's there. We're also seeking congressional funding, more expansive as well in cybersecurity initiatives. So hiring in those areas, specific to ransomware, specific to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the like. So those are just a few. We have NSA grants that are looking to accreditation, so a multitude of things. So please Google, look it up. I'm a resource. Any of us on here can help you get to the right place. And please just apply. You never know. Don't take yourself out before you actually apply. Thank you.
Tracy. And I want to point, I think our last question, if I could ask Danielle to pick this one up. We just like to get a better sense on more of the volunteer and internship opportunities that are available to students, particularly students who are in high school, but also through college age and beyond.
Sure. Thanks for that question. So I want to take a step back. When we're talking about high school students who are getting internships, they're also going to be competing against that military male who was a veteran, and then myself, who I had several years. So anytime that you are going up for any type of well, anytime you're going up for any type of positions, internships, you have to leverage your experience. So that's what I'm going to say. Also, make sure that you have that. I put in the chat, and if someone else can, there is a link to how to navigate that USA Jobs or even some of the other portals. So that's the first thing, making sure that you leverage your experience because your students will be up against some heavy hitters. It doesn't mean that they can't get it, but they have to leverage that. In terms of the internships, FEMA will take, and it is open to high school students. There's also in all of the regions, there's an opportunities for students to be volunteers. It's through our individual preparedness program. I think it's maybe about 5 or 6 students in each region, and then so maybe they're a Boy Scout or maybe they're doing sewing masks. They're doing something in their community and they are representative. So they're like young FEMA representatives, but they're not FEMA Corps. Also, that there's FEMA Corps through AmeriCorps, and you can also Google that as well. I want to make sure that let me see, I'm looking at here, high school, college, and beyond. So those are the opportunities for FEMA, and then also with DHS. But for high school students, I want to give you one nugget. If you go on the higher education and they take classes, that's going to give them a leg up. If they take a class in independent study, it could be about veterinarians in disaster response, cybersecurity. Go on there and have them take classes. They can take those classes and bundle those classes together. You can take cybersecurity and you can take emergency preparedness. Bundle those two together, and then they will get credit through what the FEMA Higher Education. They can get credit through Frederick College, I think it is, and the credit hours are like $84. So there's different ways. So if you have a student who's getting ready to graduate, they may need extra credit. Go on there. That's going to boost their resume too. Those independent study courses. And I know that Sarah and Kelly's put some things in there, but if you go to FEMA Higher Education, look at that, take your time, and that's going to be beneficial that they get those classes. So when they apply, if they're in high school or it's just starting out, if they have those independent courses, they have their foot in the door. Oh, I understand about preparedness. I understand what it means to respond if at a school, if there is a disaster or out in a community or rural area. So that's going to be helpful.
I also just wanted to add that I put a link in the chat for EMI's independent study course as well. So that's available there.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I mean, we have made good time today, and I think had a really robust and helpful conversation. Thank you to each of our speakers and all of the guests who have attended today. I believe Sarah put our email, if you wanted to email us with any more questions, already in the chat. So feel free to do that. And we, I think, can go ahead and enjoy the rest of the day's sessions. And thank you. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.